That's right, everybody. As always, thank you so much for tuning in and making this your podcast or your live stream of choice. I'm your host, John Greenwald Jr., and yes, despite what you may be used to on this channel, it is actually live if it says live on YouTube. If you're watching the replay, of course, thank you for tuning in. But know that I sporadically do these shows live, and that is the case today. Now, normally, you guys are probably used to me doing those behind-the-scenes videos, which have become a lot of fun, and I open up the phone lines. We do a lot of different things, but this time, we're approaching the end of the year. I thought, you know what, let's just do the full show live, open up the phone lines, do one topic, because I have a couple videos to record, so I may do that after the show, but wanted to just kind of join you guys here at the end of the year and talk about something that happened literally just today as this video drops and is going live. So there's a couple different things that I want to talk about. One in particular, and these are Freedom of Information Act appeal wins that may, and right up front, I want to stress, may play a huge role in the transparency about the UFO and UAP cases that were tied to the UAP task force. And so I stress may just because I'm never a fortune teller and I never like to build a lot of stuff up or anything like that. But simply, this is something that for those of you who pay attention to this channel and my social media posts, you'll know that I've talked a lot about the cases and the secrecy around UFOs and UAPs and how they don't want to tell us anything. And a story I wrote in November, which I'm going to be getting into here in just a moment, really kind of, I think, punched that point that they do not want to tell us anything about UFOs or UAPs. So we'll get into all of that, but really up front, a little bit of house cleaning here. I'm going to watch the chat the best that I can. Super chat is open. It's a great way to support the channel. Those are kind of highlighted in my software here. And so it's a little bit easier for me to see out of the corner of my eye. But also just know that's not a ploy to get money or anything. 100% of everything goes right back into this channel. You'll hear different music, see graphics, graphic packages, stuff like that. Those are all purchased and licensed. That way I don't get myself in trouble as the channel grows, but just know 100% goes into supporting the Black Vault. I don't buy myself any watches or anything like that with it. So the other kind of housekeeping thing is I did mention on social media when I posted this that I am going to be opening up the phone lines. That is true. Again, if you're watching the live broadcast, how that works is that I'm going to give you guys a toll-free number about maybe 75% away, 75% into the presentation that I'm doing. I don't envision this to be long. So when I put that on screen, you may call in and I'm going to put you on hold. You'll hear some hold music. Just know that's going to be normal. It's going to tell you what place you are in line, how many people are ahead of you. If you're first in line, just know you're next. When I pull you on, please turn your volume down. That's a huge help for me. If not, we get a bad echo and nobody has fun with that. Right up front, C. Tony, thank you so much for that support of the channel with the super sticker. I'm going to try and recognize, obviously, all of those as we go through here and find some natural breaks when that happens. But C. Tony with the super sticker, thank you so much for that. If you are listening to the audio podcast, just know I do these live. Go to www.theblackvault.com/live. That way you can see the visuals here as well. I drop these down to audio presentation, so you may be wondering, what the heck am I referring to? If you're just listening, that is what I am referring to, and that is the video portion of this. So let's jump in there. I know some of you are dying to know what the heck I'm talking about here, and I really didn't mean to tease it today on social media, but I had to put it out there because there's a lot of people that follow the Black Vault for kind of hints and tips and everything on how to use the Freedom of Information Act. And really my intent was that post with that post was to tell you guys to always appeal. And I say always appeal because you should always appeal. You'll hear me beat that dead horse here on this channel. But the reason why I do is that it works. Doesn't work all the time, but when you file a case and you are denied for whatever reason, or you have a problem for whatever reason, or you feel you were mistreated, got the wrong answer, if you have the little inkling of a grounds for an appeal, do it. Don't be intimidated by the process and don't just not do it because you don't think it'll work. It took me years to learn that lesson. I never appealed. I thought, you know what? I lost the case. They denied, they said no records, or they denied me under national security. I'm not going to appeal because it'll never work. Well, this video is going to show you how it does, so always appeal. But in that post, I also told you that it may play a role, a later post anyway, may play a role in the transparency around the UFO and UAP topic. But let me back up first. Let me give you just a little bit of a preference so you guys know what I am talking about. I know everybody, as this channel grows, I don't expect everybody to know every aspect of what I've talked about in the past. Now, the beginning of November, I had published a story, which you see on your screen now, entitled "Every UFO Case Sent to the UAP Task Force Considered Entirely Classified and, quote, exempt from disclosure." Now, I'm not going to read the article to you, but essentially what this article said was that it was denying access to all UFO and UAP reports sent to the UAP task force. Now, this is not the AOI, MSG, new office and the DOD and all that stuff. We can get into that in the question and answer period, but that's not this. This is talking about the old task force and the cases that they investigated that led up to the report. My original request was filed in May of 2020, and what I had asked for was, you'll see here if you're watching the video, all reports, cases submitted to the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence Task Force in charge of investigating unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs. I asked that you include all reports, memos, letters from October 2017 through to the date of processing this request. You'll see those three dots there. They truncated what I asked for. It essentially was asking for everything, photos and videos included. So the request went in and I had it processed. After quite a while, about a year and a half, they denied everything. What I'm reading from here is the denial letter that was sent to me just a few months ago. The Office of, and I'm going to read back to you this line, the Office of N2, N6 informed DNS 36 that the responsive records are exempt from disclosure in their entirety under Exemption 5 U.S. Code Section 552B1, which protects national security information concerning the national defense or foreign policy from disclosure, provided that it has been properly classified in accordance with the substantive procedural requirements of Executive Order 13526. In plain and simple terms, national security reasons, all UFO/UAP reports sent to the UAP task force, 100% denied across the board. That's the outcome of this case. Now, as you can imagine, that was incredibly frustrating for me. That was kind of a blow to UFO transparency, because we're not going back 10 years with this. We are simply going back in the last year and a half. And the mindset of the United States military was to deny everything. And this case proved it. This was that, I don't want to use the term nail in the coffin, because fans of this channel will know how bad that might be. But, you know, that was really kind of the emphasis on secrecy for me. And I was, I kind of had the wind taken out of my sails a little bit, because I was very encouraged that we would get more information. And if they deny across the board under Exemption B1, you know that you're kind of not sitting pretty. Now, I appealed this, and before I get to that appeal, I want to give a special shout out to my friend of this channel and me personally, Jazz Shaw. Never stop badgering the government. You won't win every battle, but there is information out there. You're absolutely right, Jazz. And I always, as I say, appreciate your friendship and support of this channel, and thank you for that. So I filed the appeal. Let me go ahead and get into the language. This is the exact language I use. I'm reading this to you for two reasons. One, so you see what I appealed. But number two, the FOIA people out there that want a couple hints and tips as we go, this was the language that I used that was successful. If anybody needs the full language of the legal jargon part, please let me know. But essentially, you're just saying you're appealing the final decision of and then your case. And these were the reasonings that I put in my appeal. Number one, it is highly unlikely that all memos, reports, letters, photos, videos, etc. are classified and exempt. The reason is that over the years, I have received numerous UAP-related material through FOIA, which deals with the UAP issue, which are not classified. I believe that during the course of the task force's operation, they would have received reports/visuals on an unclassified level. Obviously, with this, I'm honing in on the unclassified designation that some of the UAP videos got. Now, why do I say unclassified? Well, these three up here. That's the gimbal, go fast, and FLIR videos, just some still frames. Those essentially were the three videos that we've all come to know and love since December of 2017 and March of 2018. What I had discovered through working with the Navy's press office was that they were considered unclassified from their original capture. Now, I wrote that story, I believe, in about September of 2019, and that was that was something that was a little bit of a revelation to me. It might be boring to some, but it showed that these videos were unclassified. And that meant, as my cases were excelling at the time, this is 2019 going into 2020, that they would have no legal way to lock these out if they were unclassified. They could. It was a small chance, but it was going to be very, very difficult. If they were classified secret, top secret, whatever, that gave them a little bit more flexibility to say, hey, you know what? Sorry, John, denied. We can't release those videos. Now, you may be asking yourself, hey, wait a minute, these videos were released. You're right, but that had not happened yet when I had gone after them and discovered that they were unclassified videos, but also considered and tagged for official use only. So gets a little bit kind of confusing and very, I would say, convoluted, but I wanted to kind of give you that backstory just so you see the basis of my appeal was pointing at these videos here as a starting point, saying, hey, you guys already said that multiple UAP related material was unclassified. So what's your exemption? You can't exempt unclassified material under B1, because if it was national security information, it would have a classification of some kind. So they may say some other reason, sure, but we can fight that. But that was my grounds for number one. Number two, FOIA cases in the past have also produced unclassified videos released by NAVAIR of UAP material that are referenced as the FLIR, gimbal, and go fast videos. These videos were unclassified, UAP related, and released to the public. They were also likely sent to the task force or utilized by it, thus being a responsive record despite its public release. So there's my more legal way of saying what I just went over. Number three, on multiple occasions, UAP/UFO photos and videos were leaked onto the internet. And despite the leaked caveat, the Pentagon has confirmed their legitimacy and the fact they were utilized by the task force. My point with number three, this is the material released primarily by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp through Mystery Wire. The Pentagon was very, very quick to respond to my requests on some of those, to not only say they were real, not only say that they were utilized by the task force, but respond to me at all. That, in my opinion, and number three was a little bit of conjecture on my end, but essentially what I was saying was a classified leak would not yield a very quick response from a Pentagon spokesperson going, yep, those are authentic and utilized by our UAP task force. I don't see it that way. So again, I was taking a little bit of a leap. I felt number one and number two in my appeal was strong. Number three, though, a little bit of conjecture. But again, my point stood that if they were quick to respond, likely the classification would be non-existent, meaning unclassified. Here's the win. This is what I received just today. And I had filed, I believe this was in November, early November when I had filed. And so it's taken here to the end of the year, almost the first of the year. Your appeal is a request for a final determination under the FOIA. The reasons stated below, your appeal is granted, and the matter is remanded to the Office of the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, or DNS 36, the initial denial authority for an additional search and review for non-exempt responsive documents. That is what we call a FOIA win. They accepted and granted my appeal and remanded it back. Following receipt of your appeal, my office contacted DNS 36, which indicated that the Office of the Deputy Chief of Naval Operations, or Information Warfare, N2N6, had conducted the original search. My office also contacted N2N6, who informed us that a second search for and review of responsive documents will be conducted the week of January 3rd, 2022. Because N2N6 indicated that it will conduct a second search for and review of the requested records, I am granting your appeal and remanding it to the IDA for further processing. By copy of this letter, I'm remanding the matter to the IDA and directing them to release any non-exempt responsive documents discovered during this second search and review. Upon final release of all the documents, if you are dissatisfied with the response, you still retain the right to appeal that response to this office on whatever grounds you deem appropriate. I will tell you that I've won a lot of appeals. I've also lost like 3,000 times as many. But now that I've started to do FOIA appeals, have lost quite a few, as I mentioned, but one, and the ones that I've won, they very rarely go into this level of detail. And I will tell you, I was pretty darn encouraged when I read this letter and won. And now, will that, and this is where I stress, will it release anything? Like, this may help, and I wanted to stress may. This shows that the reasoning that I gave in the appeal, in the eyes of the U.S. military, they agreed. If they felt that everything was national security related and exempted across the board, they would then affirm the original denial to me and then deny my appeal. So essentially a second time I would be slapped saying, nope, sorry, John, you are not getting anything. And they didn't do that in this case. It was the opposite. Now they are going back, doing another search and looking for information. So the question mark is, will they release it, and what information will they find? And I'll get into that in just one moment. Some shout outs here to the live viewers. Owen Syvertson, obviously from Canada. Thank you, Owen, for the support. Do you think the answer to the UFO mystery is on the moon? That thing China discovered has me curious. That's a great question. I love those types of moon/Mars photos. Even some comets have seen things that we can't explain. Those are videos in itself, to be honest with you. So is the answer to everything UFO related on the moon? I would say no. Are there cool things to find on the moon, though? Absolutely. And obviously that China story I'll be following, and any developments, I'll absolutely bring it to you on the channel. Commander Corvus Corax Nevermore. I hope I have that. That's a heck of a name there, Commander. Thank you so much for that support of this channel. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Never stop what you are doing. Commander, not only thank you for that support, but those are awesome words. So thank you for that. And no, I don't envision myself stopping anytime soon. That is for sure. So back to this appeal after it was granted, what does that mean? And again, I stress that may aspect to all of this on whether or not we'll get anything, but at least we have gone this far with being, and this is a team effort. Even though I wrote the letter, I truly believe this is on behalf of the general public to access information that we have a right to know, and that is the UFO/UAP information that is not a threat to national security, which I believe, I don't know if it would be the majority or minority, but regardless, there's going to be a certain percentage that we'll be able to see. So I believe that this is a huge win, but does that mean we'll find anything in 2022 that they will release under this case? I'm not sure, but here's what I do know. What I do know is that everything that I requested when I requested it would include, at least at this point, since a second search is being conducted, at least 144 cases that the UAP task force has taken in. Keep in mind, my original request was for all of the cases, videos, photos, everything. So now we have in writing, in the form of their June 2021 report, that they looked at 144 cases. So that means that the language of my request on this search should yield everything that the UAP task force held at this point. Now, if they kind of pull an underhanded trick and go back to when I originally filed, okay, sure, maybe they'll play that. I think it'll be a dirty tactic, and I will absolutely call them out on it. But hopefully, since they're doing a second search in 2022, which as I record this is next week, then they should yield at least 144 responsive cases, unknown number of photos and videos. Just a gentle reminder also that only one of those 144 they were able to identify. You can see here in the screenshot that I'm showing you on the screen, in that case, we identified the object as a large deflating balloon. The others remained unexplained. So again, only one they were able to label a balloon. All of the others, so let's call it 143 at least, they're unexplained. They're unidentified. Whether that means they're mind-blowing, I don't really know. But I think that when it comes to calling back to the FLIR, the gimbal and go fast footage, and all of that was unclassified, I'm hoping, we'll call it 5%, we'll call it 10%. Let's say we got 14 videos. I don't know, I mean, we're guessing, let me stress guessing there, but even 10% of unclassified information would still yield 14 photos, videos, or case reports. That would be huge if they gave it to us. Absolutely huge. So hopefully that will yield something. So that was the FOIA win, and that was obviously pretty exciting. The other thing that I want to show you guys is a kind of not a sneak peek, but an inside look in the secrecy surrounding the UFO and UAP issue. Now, I just went over the appeal process, which ended up in our favor, where we won the appeal, and now they're doing a second search and a second review, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. But one other thing that I posted here in the last couple of weeks that I haven't done a video on this channel, so if you're not on social media, you may have missed that I was able to get the security classification guide on unidentified aerial phenomena released. Now, what does that mean? A security classification guide is very much how it sounds. It is a classification guide for those either collecting material or either generating material, maybe a report or something, how they deal with the secrecy surrounding a particular topic, in this case, UAPs. Now, even though one might think that somebody can just create a document and go, that's top secret. You can't really do that. There are guides, procedures, manuals, and so on that helps essentially break down how topics are treated on a secrecy level. There's a lot to this security classification guide. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, and I'm not going to go over it, but I invite you to look at theblackvault.com and download it. It's not long. And see, there's a lot redacted, but there's a lot not redacted. One of those pages is here. Now, the whole thing doesn't look like this, but it does show the level of secrecy surrounding the UAP topic. There's a lot they don't want us to know. And if I gave up on that FOIA case that I just told you about, that we won the appeal, you know what? That would kind of solidify their effort of covering this stuff up, because let's face it, for decades and decades, they have wanted this covered up, despite what we might think and hope for when it comes to transparency. They don't want us to know. So if I gave up and I never pursued the appeal, any person that filed after the same wording or similar to mine, they would get the same response, because the way FOIA offices work is that they did the work, they did the search and made a determination, and that determination will stay. And so other people down the line would get the same thing until somebody chose to appeal and hopefully got lucky as well. So this security classification guide, whether or not it played a direct role in that, I'm not really sure, but it really breaks down what they want people inside to do and how to handle UAP information. This particular page, the only thing that survived was this heading here. Might be very hard to see on the video depending upon your resolution, but it says item number 3, intelligence collection, exploitation, analysis, and I can't even read it, and it's on my screen, and productivity, maybe. So I apologize for not being able to read that. If I was able to zoom in, and I can't in this PowerPoint, but I'm sorry about that. But regardless, the key word there is exploitation. exploitation, and analysis. So what are they getting in regards to UAPs that they can exploit and analyze? Pieces, right? I mean, I'm guessing there's something physical that they can analyze. So whatever the phenomenon is, whatever they label it as, here are guidance. It looks like a table of some kind for collecting, exploiting, and analyzing that related to UAPs. Obviously, pretty interesting. There is a lot to read, as I said, in the guide. So make sure that you go onto theblackvault.com, download the whole thing, and see what there is to offer. Now, I'm going to put the number on screen. About more than 3/4 of the way through. I have one more short story to tell you. If you guys want to call in, if the Howard Stern guy is watching or listening, please don't. We're getting tired of it. Anybody else, please feel free to give me a call. Toll free, 866-856-9722. Remember, that's for the live show only. If you're listening on a podcast, it's not live. So just make sure you go to theblackvault.com/live. That will bounce you to the YouTube channel, and you will be able to participate in the next show. Forgive me there. I realized my sound was down, so I grabbed a call. So now the line is going to start. I'm going to put you on hold real quick, so I apologize. Just sit tight for me. I'm going to finish off this last story, and then we'll go to the phones, see how long we go. All right, give me 1 second. All right, now let me switch over. Perfect. Last thing I want to talk to you guys about is another appeal win that came just today. But it also plays into the secrecy surrounding the UAP issue and how they're treating the general public. I want to stress this was a second, totally unrelated win through FOIA on an appeal level just today. Both letters came in back to back. And with this story, I'll make it quick. This is about Vice Admiral Kelly. I'm going to probably mispronounce her name, Kelly Eichbach. So I apologize to the Vice Admiral if I have that pronounced incorrectly. But she currently serves as the commander of the U.S. Naval Information Forces. And before that, she served as the director of the National Maritime Intelligence Integration Office. And before that, the commander of the Office of Naval Intelligence. And prior to that, she was the deputy director of intelligence for the U.S. Forces Afghanistan. Heck of a career, amazing woman. My absolute sincere thanks for her service to this country. I want to zone in on the commander of the Office of Naval Intelligence here. And that is when I filed this request back in, I believe, 2020. This specific request was on her email box for keywords relating to UAPs. Now, through FOIA, for those who don't know, you can go after emails as well. It doesn't just have to be reports and photos. You can go into people's email boxes through searches and create keyword search requests through FOIA. That's what I did with her. Unidentified flying objects, unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, UFO, acronyms, and all. The Navy at this point is trying to take those types of requests, sometimes very specific ones, not the generic, give me everything that you have on UAPs, but closing the case, saying we found records, we will post them to this U.S. Navy reading room. Now, if you're listening and you don't see this, this is some outrageous URL that they put in the letter. And essentially what that does is it goes into the reading room where it breaks down the documents that the Navy has released. They are not notifying the individual requesters. We are supposed to go to this URL, randomly and see if our documents are posted. In 25 years, I can tell you I have never seen that on any FOIA request, and it's not even an exception. The closest thing is the FBI. And if, let's say John Madden, who sadly just passed away, a prime example, he potentially has an FBI file. Yes, I filed for it. Let's say 10 of you out there also filed for John Madden's FBI file. On the FBI side, they see a public interest. So in lieu of sending everybody CDs and paper copies or whatever, they post it on their website. If only I in the entire world request John Madden's FBI file, then they likely won't do that. I don't know of any set procedures, but I've just kind of caught on over the years that generally the more famous people that they get more requests from, requests about, will go on the vault. Other ones, and yes, the FBI called it the vault, go figure. The other ones that likely won't yield a ton of requests, I don't think they waste their time. So that's the closest thing. Other than that, the Navy is pulling this this tactic where they close your request. Here, you can see it here. This is a screenshot from something called FOIA Online. They closed my request and again just left me out to dry, saying that there were responsive records, but one day, they'll get to it. Why is that important? Well, they love to skew the stats. So if they post that in 2030, who really cares? It shows as a closed request and not appearing in their backlog, so they look better to their bosses and any congressional committees that do oversight on the FOIA, which does happen from time to time. I appealed that, and because this is just one request, it happened about 18 times. And I was so frustrated trying to work directly, I just appealed a bunch of them and said, this is essentially ludicrous. This is wrong. The appeals are being granted now, and it's being remanded back. This is that FOIA reading room that I was talking to you guys about. That is where the UFO documents go. It is very small when it comes to UAP information, and it is very rarely updated. So that was part of my appeal, saying, you guys are hanging everyone out to dry on these requests and essentially just putting it up to them that you'll put it on this incredibly complex URL. And if you don't really know where to look or even forget or don't press refresh every day, you'll completely miss it. That is not what the FOIA is about. Happy to say I was granted that appeal today as well. My requests are being remanded back. So that is absolutely a win. So let me go ahead and go to the phones, and I'm going to apologize in advance for keeping you on hold there for quite a while. Who's this?
Hey, John. My name's Chris. I'm from Connecticut. I've called you once before, and again, I want to thank you for all the work that you do as part of the Black Vault. It's really great stuff. So, I know that you've said that you've actually produced television shows in the past, documentaries or something of that nature. And I also watched your recent video about the whole Reddit and the situation where things might have been taken out of context by a particular show. So I have these are two related questions. One would be, I understand that you have to be both entertaining and informative in any type of television format, otherwise you lose people. Mm-hmm. And first of all, where is the kind of ethical line between stretching something for entertainment and being no longer factual? And secondly, what could we as end viewers of these different documentaries do to better recognize when it seems like the producers are leaning more into that entertainment side to sell the show versus being truly informative and accurate?
You asked two fantastic questions. I can tell you the answer to your first one with the moral line. For me, as a producer, and anybody can just Google my name or go to IMDb. You can see the credits that I've done. I'm not talking about stuff I've done for YouTube, but rather History Channel, Discovery Channel, National Geographic. The reason I bring that up is these are networks that never told me to stretch the truth. They never told me in my nonfiction programs, hey, John, why don't you make up this? Why don't you make up that? None of them ever did that. I believe that moral line exists within the producer of the program itself, which is encouraging, right? It should be, because we would hope that as nonfiction producers and writers and directors, we would all want to remain factual. Sadly, though, that's not the case in Hollywood and wherever else in America, but where I live in Los Angeles, it's just not the case with everyone, and that they will stretch that truth and they will do what they want when they want to make a television program more exciting. Some of the general audience dismisses that tactic as, oh, it's entertainment, who really cares? Me, I'm along the lines of, that is immoral and wrong. If you are doing nonfiction program, you should stay in nonfiction. I'm proud to say all the documentaries that I did were factual, and they played out on camera and on screen exactly how it was done. Of course, you have dramatic recreations. That's something a little bit different, but we never skewed a story. A very quick example of that, I took the late Ted Phillips, who was a friend of mine for many, many years, fantastic UFO researcher. I made him sit, not to be malicious. It was just the way the production worked out. I made him sit away from seeing a car that was involved in the Warren, Minnesota UFO case where the UFO had crashed into the squad car. And he had never seen it in person before. And he had to wait a couple hours as we were shooting other things because I wanted the scene where he sees the car for the first time not to be staged. And that poor man played ball with me on it. I told him, I apologized. But my whole point with that is that I always made sure that what you saw was real. Sadly, some producers, I don't know if it's most, don't have that line, and that is a shame. What can we do about it? That's another great question. I would always get involved and write your network. I can also tell you as a producer, when we got hate mail, and we did, when people were upset at something we put on screen or didn't like a certain person that we had, they would write into the network, and the network would not only respond to the viewer for the most part, they would also forward it to us. So, for example, the History Channel. I was never a History Channel or A&E Network employee, but I was a producer for a production company that was contracted. And so what A&E networks would do is send over the feedback, and we would take it. If the producers care, we absolutely would take that feedback, and everything that I got, we always took and learned from it and moved on. Some of the feedback was silly, while others, absolutely, it was stuff that we wanted to take to heart, because if your viewers are upset, you're not going to get another job. So that's what I would recommend to do. You write letters to the network and express in a nice tone, hey, look, this is wrong. This is why I'm not happy with this, and put your opinion in that way. So hopefully that answered your questions for you.
Yeah, I mean, with the second question, I'm glad that you said how we could do something about it. I was more questioning, how do we recognize whether or not producer is slanting more towards the entertainment side versus the factual side before we find out a year later, 2 years later, however long it is, that it was spun, so to speak.
Yeah, and I apologize for misunderstanding what you meant. In that regard, it's very hard. Television, why I fell in love with it is its biggest downfall as well, and that is it is incredibly powerful. You can make people believe something that isn't necessarily true, all with creative writing, creative editing, creative graphics, or whatever. So I'm not going to sugarcoat it and say, oh, it's easy to tell. It really isn't. I would say that if you see something in a nonfiction program that's not a cheesy reality show, if you see something, take a couple minutes and do some research on it. Follow up as much as you can and try and challenge what you saw on that television program. Challenge it, see what you can figure out, and go from there. But again, now that I understand the root of your question, that it's challenging. It really is. And that, like I said, is why I fell in love with TV and wanted to create it many, many years ago, and got very lucky getting into the business because it was so powerful. But in the same respect, that power could be used for the wrong way, and you can skew a topic, or you can make people believe something that isn't necessarily true.
All right. Yeah, I really appreciate that. And like I said, I understand all of these shows and networks are very complex and lots of moving parts, but when push comes to shove, we, the audience, we're receiving the story, whatever the story is, so to speak.
Yeah. Exactly.
But we have no way of determining if somebody asks one question off camera and we're taking something else that a person was answering out of context.
Out of context,
like
that's
that.
right.
So,
and it's incredibly.
So I
easy
appreciate
to do.
your feedback on that.
Sure.
And again, all the great work that you do on the Black Bolt as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your call.
Yep. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, let me get to a couple super chats here in the chat room. I hope I'm not missing anybody. I know that there's going to be a call that comes in here behind it. The Sparky Lady, I just wanted to give you a thanks for that. I'm sorry I'm a little late getting it to you, but really, really appreciate that. So thank you. I know that there was a couple others here. Not a question. NeuroStream. Thank you so much for that support of the channel. Very, very cool of you for that super sticker. So thank you. Again, if you're listening on the podcast, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Just know these are from the live chat room, those that are deciding to support the show. And like I said, very, very much appreciate that. And let me make sure I've got everybody. I think I've caught up to that. So I apologize if I did miss anybody. I always try and go back after the show and see who I may have missed. So my apologies if anything disappeared from my screen. Let me go ahead and go back to the phones. Let me ask, who's this? You're live.
Hi, John. My name is Lauren. I'm from Orange County, California.
Hi, Lauren. You're in my backyard. I'm up in Santa Clarita.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Very far backyard, but you know.
Yeah, it's not too far. So I'm a little timid as far as to come out and say this.
Uh-oh.
But a lot has happened since May 9th. I believe that I caught what I believe to be a UFO, UAP. I don't know exact lingo, but I did upload it finally on YouTube and put the link on your on the chat for you to see, since you are somewhat of an expert on these things. The things that led up and happened after that are unexplainable, and I feel like I've been completely left in the dark.
Okay.
And I guess my question to you is if oh my gosh, on May 25th, I guess, or was it May 25th, after the UFO or UAP was visited, there was an energy that went through my entire body the night of the blood moon. And after that, I was then led to an underground base, and all hell broke loose since then. I don't know, how to explain it any better, but I appreciate what you do as far as documenting and helping me through this, because trying to get access to these documents are nearly impossible. I don't know what my exact question was, but
that's okay. So here's, and I appreciate, I feel that you've called my toll-free line, but not on the air before, because I kind of recall the story a little bit, the way that you're telling it. But tell you what, you said that you posted it in the chat room. I'm happy to go back and find that after the show for you. And feel free. I'm the only one that runs the Black Vault, so feel free to use the contact form. And I'm happy to respond to that. Not knowing exactly what the video is, there's nothing I can really respond to. But I'm happy to either respond to that, or maybe forward you to somebody who's better suited to help you in that particular area.
I would greatly appreciate it. And what I'm really looking for, and not to take too much of your time, is what happened on May 25th to me.
Okay.
When I believe that a greater intelligence was, through the form of energy, went through my entire body, which could have been the first, contact from intelligence.
Okay.
And, I don't know how it has to be documented out there.
Sure.
That this happened. And I just don't know how to get any information on it, because it is driving me crazy trying to figure out, why and how and all the, I have so many questions and answers.
Sure.
So any help would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, you got it. And I think that the best, and again, write me directly, and I'm happy to respond to you that way. But there's a couple people that I know that research more of that angle, which is definitely not, I would say, my forte and expertise, although I look at the phenomena as a whole, but I can definitely forward you on.
Okay. Thank you so much, John.
You're very welcome. Thank you. All right. I'm always amazed at how many people have different levels of experiences when I do these calls and call-in shows. There was something that I wanted to scroll back to. There's a lot of you watching this today, so thank you so much for tuning in. So I apologize, I'm jumping around here. I did see this from Jacques O'Neill, And this was a question I did want to respond to very quickly before I go back to the phones here. John, do you think the Lukatsky book, Unsubstantiated Claims of Portals and Werewolves, is a coordinated effort from the government to undermine Elizondo and Mellon front and to further stigmatize the UAP subject? So, Jacques, I wouldn't say that it's orchestrated by the U.S. government. I don't smell that from that. Of course, that's just my opinion and conjecture. I don't know for sure. What I would want to talk about, though, is if you're not aware, and for those who are interested in this question, I did a full video breakdown of this book and how it essentially not challenges, but I would say alters the story that we have been led to believe for the last couple of years. I believe some stuff was, a repeat, but other stuff was kind of new, and it really kind of went against what we've been told about OSAP and ATIP. So was that orchestrated by the government? No. But I think in my opinion, no, I don't know for sure. But rather, I think it shows the confusion, the true confusion about the story of OSAP and ATIP and the fact that Luis Elizondo's story has come out. It's been challenged by the Pentagon, whether you believe them or not. That's just the reality of it. So there was all that mess going on. And then all of a sudden, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon comes out, authored by James Lukatsky, who was the head of the OSAP program at DIA, and he turns everything upside down. So he was saying that the New York Times was all wrong, that they were there to set the record straight. So I did a full video breakdown of that. It's on this channel. It wasn't too long ago, obviously. So just look back on the videos and take a look at it. And I don't do the video with any particular belief on any one side, but rather show you with quotes and with what we've been led to believe and verified sources that the insiders, the people that were intimately involved in these programs, or at least they said that they were, can't even agree on what the real story is. So is that orchestrated by the government, or is it just the reality of what's going on, that this effort was not necessarily what we want it to be or wanted it to believe or believe it to be? So, again, who absolutely knows? Let me go ahead and go back to the phones. You are live on the air. Who's this?
Hi, John. My name is Chris. I'm from Denver. I just had actually two quick questions for you. Sure. One is, where can I find your podcast? What's the name of it?
Oh, that's a great question, and I appreciate you asking me that. So obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, which you are right now, it's the Black Vault Originals channel, but the podcast is on every major platform under Black Vault Radio. And so,
okay, cool.
Yeah, so you'll be able to find it under that. And thank you. I always forget to point that out because a lot of people don't know what to search for, and I forget to say it. So yes, I wouldn't say every video is put down to audio podcast, but interviews, older shows, and then videos like this are then transferred to an audio podcast. I just started that in the last couple of months. I wasn't keen on doing it. I didn't know how it would go over, but surprisingly, most people like to listen versus watch, so they get dumped down to that. But it's all under the Black Vault Radio.
Cool. I'm a little bit of both, tell you the truth. My other question for you was, I was looking at the classification document, and I'm a poli-sci geek. So under Section 2, there was a public release, and then there was a bunch of, DOD jargon pointing out where the manuals go to look up all the specifics to how to actually get something released. Do you actually have to know those DoD terms and all that language before you actually make a FOIA request? How do you do that?
So I just pulled up the manual. You're talking about the general instructions, that page?
Yeah, the general section. I think it was general, something like that. It was like Section 2 under like public release. Yada, yada, go through this, and this manual, and then you can get something released. So how do you do that?
So the security classification guides, they will absolutely help. And I'm going to try and pull it up on screen here on the fly, just so I can show everybody. Okay. So I believe the section that you're talking about is here. These are the general instructions. Now, the language that's used in guides like this, help, but is not required to file a FOIA request and get results. A lot of times you won't have these documents, and in most cases, a lot of FOIA requesters don't even know that SCGs exist, the security classification guides. So it's my long-winded way of saying all of that will help you understand how UAP information, or whatever topic it is, information is handled on the level of secrecy, but is 100% not required to request the information and go after reports, photos, videos, whatever it might be that you're looking for. Definitely not required, because through FOIA, I always tell people to skate the line between not being too broad to where they'll just reject the request and say, sorry, John, we can't process this because you're too broad. Skate the line between that and the other side, which is you are too specific and you may only get a small piece of a much bigger puzzle. And that also works against you. So sometimes learning all that language and trying to utilize it can come back and bite you. That if you're trying to talk the talk and walk the walk, that you can put yourself into a very small box for responsive material. So in reality, there may be 100 pages of what you're looking for, but since you were so specific, you may only get 10 of them. So that's kind of a rough, idea, but that's the concept, that you want to skate the line between being too broad and too specific. So it will help you, but definitely don't bank on using all of that.
Cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate your help.
You are very welcome. Thank you. All right. Getting caught up here and switching gears. So obviously the podcast, guys, I'm sorry that there's maybe some pauses here into the to the audio stream. Again, I'm just kind of switching back and forth between a few monitors here and answering questions as the calls come in. You are live on the air. Who's this?
This is Ken from Los Angeles.
Hey, Ken. Now you're getting closer from my Orange County caller. I'm up in Santa Clarita. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I'm sure you've reported on a lot of cave paintings and petroglyphs showing UFOs, and you're aware that that NASA has released documents where they went through different papers where people 4,000 years ago were seeing these crafts in the sky, and we also know that recently. The Navy has been encountering these UFOs over our oceans every single day. So hasn't it dawned on you that maybe we're not alone on the planet? That the reason why we keep seeing these UFOs popping in and out of our oceans, popping in and out of our volcanoes and our lakes, is because there's several highly advanced civilizations that share the planet with us. I mean, Richard Dolan, Tom DeLonge, Linda Moulton Howe have basically acknowledged that we are not alone on this planet. So, when are you? I'm sure that's been evident to you, hasn't it?
Not in that way. So I wasn't sure if you were saying you, generally speaking, or you, as in me, John Greenwald. So if you're directly asking me, and this isn't the right or wrong answer, meaning I'm not saying the way I think about this is the right way. This is just how I think. So forgive me for saying it this way. I need more evidence to believe that beings from another world or another dimension or whatever it might be are walking among us. That's just me. I'm a very nuts and bolts kind of guy. I need to see the information, the evidence, the documentation. I've known Linda and Richard for many, many, many years, and I know that they don't agree with me on a lot of stuff, and vice versa. But it's always been respectful. So when you throw that out there for them, they have different ways of looking at it. So I wouldn't say that, again, it's right or wrong. That's just me.
Right, but we have UFO hotspots on this planet, right? I mean, to me, that would be like a flight corridor used by them. I mean, if there are visitors coming from other planets or other dimensions, they're not going to always pop up in the exact same locations. And also, the Russian military has acknowledged that they know how to, get these UFOs to appear. So these UFOs aren't coming from another planet. They're coming up out of the oceans. And there's a history. We have a history of people seeing these UFOs, that goes back literally 4,000 years. And we know today, with the MUFON, people are seeing these crafts around this planet every single day.
Yeah, I don't discount that at all. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy that there's a lot of people that have those experiences. I never have. So when it comes to the hot spots and those types of encounters, sadly, and I live in LA, I would hope and want to see something like that. Just never have. Have traveled a lot. Again, just never have. So that I'm happy for people. I've just never had that personal experience. When it comes to the artwork and those ancient depictions of what can be labeled as a UFO or even aliens, or a different species. I know you're saying that it doesn't have to be extraterrestrial from another planet, but rather something living with us here. Regardless, I'm super intrigued by that. I think it's unbelievable. There are some things that I think maybe are just misconstrued and mislabeled, while other ones we'll probably never know the answer to, but I don't discount that. I absolutely look at it and absolutely take from it what personally I can. But do I bank on it and say, hey, they're here walking among us and coming from the oceans based on that evidence? For me, no, I just don't.
Well, I think, even with the Bermuda Triangle, the Bermuda Triangle has a history of weird occurrences going on there. So to me, if there's another intelligence that occupies that area of the planet, then it would make sense, why we keep having all these strange phenomena going on in that area, and then other areas of the ocean. We're an ocean planet. So why wouldn't there be other civilizations under the water? Again, because we're seeing them. How is that not evidence? We are seeing them popping in and out of the oceans every single day. How is that not evidence?
Well, it's absolutely evidence, but evidence of what? And again, I think that this is the debate about a lot of that stuff, is that, yes, we can acknowledge that there's evidence, which I do. There are cases and again, a lot surrounding oceans and so on. So I acknowledge that, but evidence of what? And for some...
Well, what do you think they're doing now? They're looking for sushi?
Well, you're saying they, so you've automatically, for me, again, this is not a right or wrong, I'm right and you're wrong kind of way to look at it. I'm just saying, it sounds like you have concluded that there's a species that you're referring to as they down there and facetiously say they're looking for sushi. I'm saying the evidence isn't there for me to say, oh, you know what, these craft that are coming in and out of the ocean or that people are experiencing that I never have are piloted by some species of some kind. So again,
what do you think is piloting them? Mickey Mouse? I mean, come on.
I've never seen one, so I have no idea.
These crafts are being intelligently controlled, and there is ample evidence, right? People being abducted. With all of the missing 411 stuff. There's a lot of weird stuff going on this planet. Just because it doesn't make sense to you, or just because you haven't experienced it, doesn't mean it's not happening.
But I didn't say it wasn't happening. You were asking me why I didn't believe a certain thing, and I was trying to meet you halfway and say this is how I think, but it's not right or wrong. It's just the way that I think. Again, everybody approaches this topic in different ways, and they've walked in different shoes. So just because others experience something that I haven't, it doesn't mean that I discount what they've experienced. Rather, the type of person I am, I can't just go, you know what? I've seen these stories before, so they have to be true. No, I don't. I mean, the U.S. military, and just to play devil's advocate, and I'm sure I'll get hate mail from this, but the U.S. military is experimenting with transmedium vehicles and have done that for quite some time. Have you fully ruled that out? Humans?
But yeah, well, okay, so you're saying that the military was making these vehicles 100 years ago when people were seeing these things?
No. Well, I think we're jumping around here because you went to missing 411, so that's obviously in the forest, national forest. We've gone from the oceans, we've gone from ancient stuff and people that are seeing stuff to this day. So,
yeah, but no, my question is, do you think that right? You're alluding, saying that the Navy today are making these crafts. Yes, I think they are. Okay. I think that, just like Richard Dolan says, that there's a breakaway civilization who does have access to, this high technology. So to me, it's all of the above. it's the breakaway civilizations, it's our underwater neighbors, and of course, we have to be being visited by intelligences from other planets because there's so many planets out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but to say that there's nothing in these crafts is ridiculous. Or to say, we don't know what's in these crafts. There is something in those crafts, and that something is intelligently controlling those crafts. It's not Mickey Mouse, And
right,
I think that
if I can interject real quick, I never said that there was nothing in any of these craft. What I was trying to refer to is you were saying, what are they doing down there? So you've already established that there is a physical being in these craft and that they have intent. Why can't it be something else? Why can't it be a machine piloted by somewhere beyond? Again, there's a lot of different possibilities here. And I think to kind of put everything under the same brush and stroke and try and identify it from 100, 1,000 years ago to yesterday to today to missing 411 to oceans, you can't do that. In my opinion, you have to zone in on each individual aspect of this phenomena and deal with it there, because I don't think there's one answer. I think there's numerous answers. And what I was talking about with military technology and transmedium vehicles and that type of ability, you've now acknowledged that you believe that they're doing that, which is great. So then how do you know, just based on today's testimony, that's not what you're looking at? Because it sounded like you were convinced, again, going back to your comment about looking for sushi, that this was not humanity, this was something else.
No, yeah, I think it's all of the above. I think it's our underwater neighbors. I think it's a breakaway civilization. I think it's our military, and it's visitors from other planets.
Well, there you go. Then I think we've come to some common ground that there's going to be lots of answers. Me personally, though, I'm not ready to tell you what I definitively say some of those answers are.
Right. But you're saying that this idea that we don't know what it is. We know it's something. It's not like just the ether. These crafts are not being piloted by nothing. They're obviously being piloted by some type of intelligent being.
Right. I think we're in agreement there too. And it's a matter of, is it remotely controlled by an intelligent being? Is it a being that lives under the water that you're talking about? I mean, again, I feel that you're being very definitive in one way, but also just saying, hey, it's all of the above. And for me, I don't do those types of labels.
Well, yeah, I think the different crafts that we're seeing, I think some of them are probes that are being controlled by these by our underwater neighbors. Some of them are crafts, and I believe that just as there's just as much diversity with races with the surface races, I think our underwater neighbors are also just as diverse or even more diverse, which is why we see so many different types of crafts. And, there are people in our government who've also categorized. I think it's a Corso who talks about the 57 different species and 70 different types of craft that have been categorized by our government. And they say that, that they have different levels of technology. Some of them can just disappear. Some of them have tractor beams. Some of them have to actually land on the planet. But there are people within our government that are aware of all these things. And I don't think, that we have to wait for our government to disclose. I think that the information is all out there. It's just a matter of giving the people who are speaking about it a voice instead of just discounting them. Or, and then assuming that they're crazy or that they don't know what they're talking about.
Have you, really quick, and then, because I don't want to cut you off, but I want to ask you a quick question. How much research did you do in the background of Phil Corso?
What do you mean as far as...
his background?
Research?
I mean, obviously he made a lot of claims. Did you try and vet them? And who he was, what he claimed to have done versus what you were able to find out researching him? Because it sounds like you put a lot of weight into what Corso said. So one of my other callers...
But he's not the only one that said it. There's a lot of other people that have also said the same thing.
Not the same thing. Actually, when you put everything together, and this is the very challenging part of listening to insiders that come out and sell you a book and tell you stuff like that, that when you put it back to back, they don't align whatsoever. They all have their different independent stories. Bob Lazar didn't tell you the story that Phil Corso did. So why is that? And so again, I just go back to, did you vet because it sounds like you put a lot of research into this, so I mean no disrespect. I'm just asking, since you brought him up, have you done research into Corso away from his claims in his book?
So what are you saying, that he's lying?
I'm not saying. Okay, in my opinion, yeah, I don't believe he was fully truthful in that book. There are a lot of claims that didn't pan out, and if you look at his background, it didn't match up with his rank. He was talking about doing things that he was essentially unable to do. My friend, the late Stanton Friedman, did a lot of research into that as well, was not convinced whatsoever. Even though Stanton and I never agreed 100% on everything, I do fall back on the fact that when that book came out, Stanton really dug into his background and found a lot of discrepancies. So I was just curious, since you brought him up, how do you deal?
Dan, he's one person. There have been
there's a lot of people that can verify that.
They have also said the exact same thing. And again, it doesn't matter what you think. It's obvious to me that we are not alone on the planet.
That's
right?
good.
And I'm not the only one that's saying
that.
this. There are other people who are saying that there are non-human intelligences that share the planet with us.
There were a lot of people that said the Earth was the center of the universe too. Just because a lot of people say it doesn't make it true. So again, I think with this phenomena, and I'm going to let you go, again, not trying to cut you out, but I got a lot of people on hold. With this phenomena, we just have to address it in our own individual ways. There's no right or wrong. We're going to be walking in our respective shoes differently and experience things differently. It sounds like you think I'm saying certain things that I'm not. I don't discount evidence. And the fact that you believe that we're not alone is great. I'm not here to tell you not to believe that. I'm just saying from a personal level, because you were saying...
No, I don't believe it. I know it. I know we're not alone on this planet.
I feel good for you. I mean that. I'm glad that you've had that experience. I haven't. So until then, hey, we can have great conversations like this and go from there and learn from each other.
Absolutely. Thanks for giving me the time to speak out.
My pleasure, sir. You have a good day. Thanks for calling. I know he was getting worked up, but you know what? I love those types of calls. We all approach this. I'm so sorry for my dog in the background. That is Sonar Dog, by the way. For those from the behind-the-scenes shows, you learned a little bit about her. She is the one that is blind and deaf. And so she knows the halls, but I think she barks to see where the walls are. So I apologize for the barking. Let me go ahead and get this before I go back to the phones. Swink McLeod, thank you so much for your support of the channel. After 30 plus years, I typed out a multi-page detailed account of my sighting from 1988 because my sighting had a few details that are not similar to any other account that I've heard. Where is a good place to post my account? Great question. So on the blackvault.com, I have a full case file database. I am happy to publish that for you. It is not behind any paywall. Nobody needs to register. That is true across the board for the blackvault.com. However, you can use any contact form that you find and submit your sighting, videos, photos, whatever it is. I can put that in the case file database. You'll get a page dedicated to your information. It can be anonymous. It can be with your name. That is all up to you. So feel free to definitely contact me, and I'm happy to do that for you. And that goes to anybody out there with their experience. You want to talk about it, you want to post it out there. I am happy to do that for you. One very cool feature is that if you go to the case files section at theblackvault.com, there is a global case map, shows you a map of the world and icons that represent every single case that is in there. So that is kind of a fun feature for you to zone in on your particular area and see what's there. So thank you very much for the support. And again, I am happy to spread the word about your case. As long as my dog doesn't keep butting in on the show here, let's do some more calls. You are live on the air. Who's this?
Hey, John, this is John as well. How you doing?
Hey, John, it's a good strong name you got there. Thanks for calling.
John, right? Not Jonathan or nothing.
Yeah, no, that's the right way you spell it. John, that's right.
Hey, I got a real kick out of seeing the younger version of John Green on your, I think it was Twitter. You put out a clip of, they were doing an interview of you, and you look like kid right out of high school or something. It was pretty cool. You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, 25 years. I think it was 17. I think the screenshot was probably Confirmation. It was a 2-hour NBC special based on Whitley Strieber's book, which was the first television show I ever did. It was pretty awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Hey, I have a question. Joe Rogan, obviously, whatever people's opinions on Rogan, he does a lot of interviews regarding, I think he had Commander Fravor on, Bob Lazar, etc. I assume you've seen most of those interviews?
It for the most part, yeah. Some of them, it's been a while since I've seen them, so I'm not sure if I'll bank on answering any questions you might have, if that's where you're going.
Well, Jeremy Corbell actually, in his interview with Bob Lazar, he brought up an interesting point, and that is Howard Stern has a huge penis.
Man, really, that whole setup for that? Sorry for those. I'll have to beep that out. You know what? He probably was hanging on hold for a while. He's usually the first caller, and he changes his caller ID. It's very frustrating. Anyway, I've had my finger on the delete button or the dump button before, but anyway, every live show that guy calls. I don't get it. Anyway, you're live on the air. Who's this?
Hi, John. It's Mike from Ontario, Canada.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. I'm great. First of all, I want to say I'm super impressed by everything you have done with the Black Vault. Totally amazing that you've accomplished all this.
Thank you.
The one thing I wanted to bring up is I have been interested in UFOs for all my life, long time. And I'm also a freelance writer, mainly in the filmmaking world. But about 10 years ago, I was doing some background work on looking into the signal intelligence community, which is Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and United States. And they share intelligence and all that kind of stuff. But that's a whole different topic. That's a very involved thing. But one of the guys I had phoned to do my background work on was a guy who had worked at the Canadian Forces base in Resolute, Northwest Territories, and it's the northernmost base in Canada, and it's been around since the 40s, and actually helped with sinking the Bismarck. It's kind of really interesting, but I was talking to him about signals intelligence, and he had retired, and we were talking, and so because I've always been interested in UFOs, after we got the signals intelligence part out of the way, I said to him, I've always been interested in UFOs, and just out of curiosity, did anyone ever see any UFOs at the base? And there was a pause, and he said, okay, he said, who are you really? And I thought, what? And the guy said, you know what? I'm not going to discuss this at all, and don't ever call me back. And he hung up. And I thought, okay, this had been just a regular guy, like he had worked at the base and, did communications work there. And we're just chatting, and he seemed totally normal. I verified that he had worked there and he was retired. And I thought, wow, isn't that weird that I just brought this up out of the blue, out of my own curiosity, because what we were talking about had nothing to do with UFOs. And I thought, geez, I wonder, there's got to be something more there. But unlike you, I didn't want to pursue that, and I didn't know how to even pursue it with the Canadian government, if they have a similar kind of thing. But I had always wondered, have you ever run across anything with Resolute Bay in the Northwest Territories? Because I know there are some U.S. military personnel are stationed there at times, and they deal with all kinds of electronic stuff. So they're eavesdropping all over the world and that kind of thing. But I wonder if you'd run across any kind of UFO information about Resolute Bay.
Not specifically about Resolute Day. I wrote it down here to kind of see what I can find out on that specifically. I can tell you more broadly speaking with signals intelligence and stuff like that. SIGINT is highly referenced in the NSA court document back in the early 1980s as being as playing a role, I should say, in the collection of UAP or more specifically back then UFO intelligence. Yeah. So they've collected a lot of stuff utilizing SIGINT and stuff like that. But in regards to Resolute Day, no, I'm going to have to kind of look into that and see what I can find for you.
Yeah, that was the thing that really, as someone who like writes about things and talks to people and investigates stuff, that really jarred me. Because, you know, if you, let's say in your life, if you're just talking to someone not related to UFOs and they seem normal and rational and all that kind of stuff, and then you bring up UFOs and about something they may know about, and they shut right up, and they say, don't talk to me again. Like, it was really bizarre. Yeah. Like, yeah, I thought, this seemed like a perfectly normal guy. And then he said, don't ever call me back.
Yeah, that's interesting. Really, let me see what I can find out for you. Drop me a line. I know I've said it a couple times in the show, but any contact form goes directly to me. Just I've got it written down. Just write me, and I'll tell you what I find out, if anything. And I'll send you some links to the SIGINT stuff. But
another quick thing is, because I had been investigating signals intelligence and all that kind of spy world, that kind of thing. One of their mantras, if you're talking to anybody in the secret world, is if you ever have to hide anything, you hide it in plain sight. That's kind of a well-known thing in that the secret world. And I always thought, I can't remember the name of the island now, but around Catalina Island, there's lots of UFO, have been reported over the decades. There's an island not far from Catalina Island, which was a military base for a long, long time, I think since the 30s. And it was used during World War II. I think it was a gunnery range also. But since then, it's been known by all the boaters in Southern California, don't go there because there's unexploded ordnance, there's signs, don't get on the island. And there is a military base there. And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome? That would be the place if the U.S. government did have UAPs or something secret they didn't want the public to know about, to have it there. It's hidden in plain sight.
Yeah, they've got
millions of people.
Yeah, they've definitely got a tactic of doing that. I did a story for History Channel on Greenbrier and the underground facility they had there that they were going to whisk Congress away, and it was built underneath like a 4 or 5 star resort hotel in West Virginia. I mean, it was an amazing thing to see, but it was hiding it in plain sight. Nobody knew that it was there, and they've done that quite a few times. So, yeah, it's definitely their mantra.
Okay, well, I'll send you an email, but I just want to say congratulations. The work you're doing is fantastic, and you should probably do more of this, like an Art Bell kind of a show, because I think there's just a lot of people with a lot of information that they could share, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I always have a lot of fun with the live call-in show. So yeah, I will definitely try and do it more often in the coming 2022. So thank you so much too for listening in from Canada.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Really quick here, I'm going to take a couple more calls, and then as my dog is panicking in the hall here, I'm going to have to, in the pouring rain, take her outside. I'm just curious about this comment I saw in the chat. Hey, that Stern guy's been recording bits off John's show for a time to edit it together for a final show bit that Howard will reject. I'll be honest with you, I don't watch Howard Stern, obviously been well aware of him. His calls always remind me of the 1990s, when I was in high school and grade school, I should say, before I went to high school. And that's how I remembered Howard Stern in these crank calls. But let me, like, does he do that? That's what I'm curious about with that comment. Does he actually have people do that? Because part of me would find it actually kind of cool to as frustrating as it is. Heck, if he puts it on Howard Stern and says that he kept calling my show, oh, I'll take the publicity. Why not? Let me go back to the phones. I think I know who this is. Who's this?
Hi, John. This is Steve.
Hey, Steve. Padilla, how are you?
Hi. Fine, sir. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to hear your voice again. You're a long time listener and watcher of the show. I always appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
And I appreciate all the hard work you do for us, using FOIA and getting information for us.
Absolutely. Thank you. So what's up?
Well, I have a couple of questions. Probably the first one. I believe the CIA, along with Navy Intelligence, OSI, all investigate UFOs. And this new program, the Airborne Object Identification Management Group that's setting up, for some reason, I really looked into this for many years, that when they did the Condon report, the CIA was behind it, supposedly, and what came out of it was that after that report came out, they canceled Project Blue Book. So to me, it was like a setup. CIA, they're good at propaganda. I mean, they know how to play the game and set everything up. Do you think this new program that they put up is going to be a setup? I mean, are we being set up again to not get the information, conspiracy? What do you think?
Stephen, that would definitely be my concern and has been for a while. I have talked a lot about the congressional push for transparency about UFOs in the mid to late 1960s. That was led by Gerald Ford, amongst others, before he became president. And that paved the way for a scientific analysis of UFOs, which led to the Condon report. So leading up to the Condon report, it seemed very encouraging to the general public who wanted UFO transparency. Even though there was a UFO investigation at the time, you had Gerald Ford pushing for transparency. You had an obvious issue going on when it came to the phenomena that was not going away. You had former military people that had come out talking about UFOs. You had former government personnel that were coming out talking about UFOs. So you had all of those different cast of characters, which very much reflects today. And we have a lot of that unfolding today. And you can juxtapose both eras and see a lot of those similarities. And what did we get? And we got the Condon report. And that's what worries me about the effect of a lot of these embellished stories, those that have come out. And I'm not talking about the Tic Tac or those types of encounters. Those are what we need to hear and hear from our brave men and women who have come forward that have had these encounters. But rather, we're hearing about a lot of other stuff as well over the last couple of years. And a lot of it plays a role in muddying the waters. And it worries me a little bit that those types of stories will taint what we really should be looking at. And those, again, brave men and women that are serving in our armed forces that have had these encounters, even well beyond. But if they want to start with the military, that's fine with me. And look at those cases and that information. That's what we should be doing. But instead, there's a lot of other baggage that's coming along with it. And I think that, I fear anyway, that we are paving the way for another Condon report. I hope I'm wrong. But it wouldn't surprise me if that happened.
I believe so too. And another question: on December 28th, you posted a post regarding a document that came out in 2012 regarding NRO was holding information from NASA from a document, classified information from the public. And I was wondering, what kind of classified information you think they were hiding from the public?
So that was a document that I got through a mandatory declassification review, posted it a couple weeks ago. For those who aren't aware, I'll probably be doing a video about this shortly, maybe even later today, and post it out. But regardless, what it was a document that showed coordination between NASA and the DoD and essentially the NRO and the spy satellites. And so I think that NASA was kind of working hand in hand in the classified aspects of the space program. So we all knew NASA by Apollo missions and Gemini, Mercury, and all that. But behind the scenes, they were doing a lot of other stuff as well. I even wrote about it in my book about a DoD outpost on the moon that was potentially going to be piggybacking off the Apollo missions. There's a big history there. But what this document revealed, with some redactions being lifted, was that NASA was actively withholding information from the general public. And they feared that if additional information came out, they specifically mentioned the Freedom of Information Act and how people could start demanding answers through FOIA. And it showed the legal, we'll call it power. It has a lot of shortcomings, but there's a lot of power with the FOIA as well. And NASA wanted to withhold that stuff from the general public. So even though this was, a few decades ago, it shows you the mindset that what you think is true about a government agency, that they don't work in classified programs and they're just sharing science and that's their endeavor and they want to be transparent. Behind the scenes, there's a lot more going on. And I think that was really what was revealed about NASA then. Are they doing that now? I can tell you history often repeats itself. And so it would not surprise me at all. The word transparency, when it comes to the U.S. government, they really don't know what the definition is. And they have a very quirky definition for it, and it's ever changing. History often repeats itself in the sense that there has been cover-ups literally since the inception of the government. So I don't think that that's going away. So can I pinpoint that NASA is covering up X, Y, or Z right this very moment? No, we won't know. But who knows if in 10, 20, 30 years, we may find out what they were doing in 2021 and 2022 and what they found with the James Webb Telescope that they decided to withhold from the public. So that secrecy, I think, is in perpetuity. It's not going away.
Right. Well, I want to wish you and your family a happy New Year and a better New Year coming up, and hopefully this is a better one for everybody.
I agree, Stephen. Thank you so much, too, for your support, and happy New Year to you and your family as well.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Let me get this chat real quick. I took the phone number off the screen because I'm going to wind this down here pretty quick. I don't know if anybody else is in the queue, but let me get this. From Daryl Zernick. Daryl, thank you so much for that. And there is, let me go ahead and put that on hold. Any thought on the new FOIA documents regarding the drone swarm of Navy ships the Drive reported about 2 weeks ago? Thanks for all you do. Yeah, my thoughts are more generally speaking that I think that the drone swarm technology, something that we're experimenting with ourselves here in America, but also potentially having other countries doing the same thing or having drones themselves doing recon on our missions. We have to keep that in the equation of unraveling UAP. We just do. And I know that a lot of people hate that. A friend of this show and a friend of mine as well, Stephen Greenstreet, I think gets kind of a bad rap for talking about that topic a lot. I don't get the vibe, although I don't speak for him, I don't get the vibe that he's saying everything is drone technology, but we can't take it out of the equation. And I think we have to look at that and utilize that information in unraveling the UAP mystery. Like I told that caller before, UAPs are not going to be solved with one brushstroke answer. It really is going to come down to focusing in on each particular incident and focusing in on what potentially is the explanation for that aspect of the phenomena. In regards to the drone swarm specifically being reported, the guys at the Drive are doing an awesome job. My friend Dave Beatty, who did the Nimitz Encounters film, if you haven't seen it, Google it. I think it's nimitzencounters.com, but don't quote me on that. Just search for the Nimitz Encounter. Dave Beatty has also really dug in on this topic, has done some exceptional work. And so my overall comment is I think that it's fascinating. I think that there are certain aspects to the UAP issue that is absolutely a national security threat to us, that it could potentially be another country. I don't put that in all UAP cases, and I always stress that, but nobody, my biggest haters never listen to the latter part. But I think drones and drone swarm technology are definitely part of this equation and will be for some time to come. It also looks like, as reported by The Drive, and I know my friend Dave Beatty is having the same issue, there's a lot of secrecy involved with that as well. So what I've been going over with the secrecy on UAPs and the security classification guide and all that, when it specifically comes to references to these drone encounters, that secrecy seems to be the exact same, that nothing has changed. So is it related? Does that mean it's related? Does that mean secrecy is just abound? All of the above, yes. But regardless, the secrecy is there. Artisan Tony, thank you so much for that. Happy New Year and keep up the good work, John. Thank you. For those who don't know, Artisan Tony, not only a friend of the show, I see him in the chat room a lot, but I had the pleasure of being on his channel today in a 90-minute or so interview for his viewers. So if you're not familiar with his channel, definitely go over and support him as well. He doesn't deal with just UFOs. He talks to people he finds interesting. And I think that's what he calls it. It's a playlist called People I Find Interesting. Sorry, Tony, if I have it mislabeled a little bit, but I think you said you term it Pi-Fi. And so he's got a playlist there, but he does a lot of other stuff completely unrelated to UFOs. Very cool stuff, popular channel. So thank you for that, Tony. Let me go ahead and go back to the phones. And you are live on the air. Let me have you turn your radio down too for me. Who's this?
Hello, John. It's Richard.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Very well. And you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too. We are almost there. We're almost to 2022. Hard to believe.
I know. Crazy.
Yeah, too crazy.
Okay. I got a quick question for
Sure.
you, John. And the only reason I wanted to give you this question is because you're one of the few people that I see involved in this whole puzzle that, well, you stick it out, you look for the evidence, and you question everything. What I don't understand is a big portion of this seems to be a lot of people following from the beginnings of with 1989 Bob Lazar and all that. And I don't understand why in this day and age someone can't go to, whether it be a senator or someone, and say, listen, we don't want to make a big scene out of this, but we want to put this to rest. And we want to take a team of 3 people, 4 people, whatever, maybe no cameras, whatever. But we're going to go up to where this S4 was. We're going to look around, and we're going to put it to bed. And it's going to be done with. And if that's done with, then we don't have to pay any more attention to that. But as long as it's burning on the edges and fueling the fires, we'll continue to keep going down this road. And that seems to be one that is solvable. Maybe I'm wrong.
You're talking about solving the UAP issue altogether?
No, I'm saying solving something that, look, when you can release a story like Bob did in 1989,
mm-hmm.
and then have a film be done about it in 2018, and rekindle a lot of things that, whether, maybe let's say 30% of this whole UAP belief issues, everything is funneled by new believers, whether they're from the age group of 15 to 30, whatever, that they've watched stuff like Bob Lazar. They've gone back in the things and looked at these different things and all these other things. And here we are dealing with the story of Bob Lazar, that it could easily be done with. I don't understand why no one involved in the U.S. Senate, Harry Reid, all these guys, Harry Reid will sit there and say, I went to Area 51. Why couldn't he put the S4 thing to bed.
Well, I'm not sure if you'll like this part of it now that I understand your angle. I thought you meant
No, but that's why I wanted to ask.
Yeah, so now that I understand the scope, I thought you meant the whole phenomena solved by that. But if you're talking about Bob Lazar and putting that to bed, when it comes to stories like this, I think there's too much that works against Bob. And I'm not sure what your thoughts are if you believe his story or not. I think there's too much that works.
But don't you understand what I just said? That no matter how I look at his story, no matter how I see thoughts against him, thoughts for him, thoughts, all these things.
Yeah.
What would put it to bed is an actual trip by the government, by somebody involved in this topic, whether it be the new Senator Gillibrand or whoever, that they actually went to S4. And if there's no such thing as S4 with a thing in the side of the cliff, then it's done. It's over. Right. So,
and I follow you. Where I was going to go with my setup there was essentially, would you believe the government anyway? So so that's why I'm saying I think there's too much working against Bob for somebody to get involved, put their name on it, and say, hey, there's nothing out there. And then they're going to be branded as part of the cover-up conspiracy. There's too much baggage that goes along with it. I don't think that a Gillibrand or any member of the government coming out and saying, I physically went to Area 51, or I looked into this, or whatever they did to try and put it to bed, if they came out with the negative and said Bob was full of it and he wasn't telling the truth, those that believed in Bob are not going to stop believing in Bob. So in my opinion, there's no point. And a prime example is what they're doing today. When they do that and again, it doesn't matter if you believe him or not, with Luis Elizondo and what he claims to have worked with a project, that is a instance where they got involved. Now, again, I'm not supporting the government. I'm not supporting Luis Elizondo. I'm just telling you how it is, where they come out and say, hey, his story is not true. So he did not do this. Nobody believed the government anyway that already sided with Elizondo. Those that did believe the government had pretty much already said, hey, no, I don't really believe this guy anyway. So to me, I don't think it changes anything. And going back to Lazar, where then does it end at that point? So let's get beyond whether or not people are going to believe it. Where then does it end?
But that's my point, though. That's my point. And my point is the proof. You got to find the proof. So the proof is we can, like I've been following this for a long time, and while I've been following it, I can listen to everybody sit there and say, you know what, the government lied. Listen to them now. Everything's stories, just almost like going back to biblical times. But to be honest, the only thing I see in this whole story with Lazar is the S4. Any man that says his story and says it's into the side of the mountain, it's there to be done, it's there to be seen, sure, they got sand on it and all that, whatever. But there's no possible way that from 1989 to 2021, where people are now asking for answers, give us answers.
Well,
why can't that be eliminated? That's something concrete that you can actually sit there and say, look, we went to the Senate, we talked to different people, we organized this thing, we went up to S4, we had a couple people from the UFO community, maybe Lou Elizondo, whoever, and there's nothing there, or, you know what, we can't talk about it, whatever. But if no one does that, then the story stays alive forever.
Well, maybe they want that. And it comes down, I want to address it in two very quick ways. It comes down to burden of proof. And that is why would they have to go out of their way to do such a trek and bring everybody out there to discredit Lazar when, in fairness, Lazar really didn't show any proof. And now, again, that's a show in itself, and I hope that I don't offend you by saying that. But when it comes to really hardcore believing Lazar, there's not enough there. And in fact, there's a lot working against him. On the other end, maybe, and this is just conjecture on my end, they don't mind, they meaning the powers that be, don't mind the messy story surrounding the legend and lore of S4 and secret alien saucers and so on and so forth. Because I've played a lot on this channel around with the idea of the counterintelligence value of UFOs. And I believe, and I always feel forced to say this, that I do believe that there's a percentage of this phenomena that is real, unexplainable, and deserves scientific scrutiny. It's why I do what I do. I believe that. But in the same respect, I think there's a percentage that's explainable. And I think that they can use these types of stories to cover up the stuff that is explainable to them, but they don't want the general public to know about. In turn, you are also covering up all of the stuff they don't know, all of the percentage of the phenomena that is fascinating, that does deserve a more widespread international scientific effort to understand. But the American military or the American government or both says, no, we can't tell anybody. So they let all those stories just float out there and create that muddy pit that nobody knows what the truth is or isn't. I mean, Philip Corso is another prime example. His story didn't coincide with Lazar. So if they go out and make a trek out to S4 and they put that to bed, now you're going to have the public do an upcry, say, hey, well, what about Philip Corso's claim? Go here, go there, find the documents here. Was this reverse engineered? Were these semiconductors alien technology? And you just kind of, it spirals out of control. So I'm not saying that that's the answer I like, but rather where does it end if you start dealing with those types of claims from the general public? There wasn't enough evidence put forward in the tale of Lazar or someone like Corso.
But you don't think in the work you've done over these last 25 years, how many times you went for freedom of information and it was just a waste of time, and 5 years later you had to wait again, you had to do this again, you had to do that. In those 25 years that you put together your body of work, someone else could have done for 25 years answering these questions instead of having, let's just say, let's say 50% of the American people believe in UFOs. That's 150 million, something like that. Let's say 50 or 10% of that, 20% of that believe in crazy UFOs like Bob Lazar, Philip Corso, all those things that were talked about in the last 30, 40 years. And no one ever in these 40 years put it to rest. It was always just now, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're wrong, because I understand what you're saying. You're saying, look, where does this stop? You know, if you answer debunk that, then you're into the next one and you're into the next one. But that's what basically you do with freedom of information. It's a work in process. And I can't believe that no one that I see involved in this whole field for the last 30 years anyways, in my lifetime, has ever gone to the point. And the crazy thing is, the one guy who he actually lived a province away from me in New Brunswick, but the what's his name with Area 51, but he did a lot of research on it and all that stuff and all that, and unfortunately he just passed away.
You're talking about Stanton Friedman?
Yes.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So Stanton, at least, but at the same time, he became, to me, watching everything, nothing, everything becomes somewhat Hollywood, and you become, you put together shows, you put together a production, you do different things, and you want to keep people entertained. You want different things, but you do want answers. People are waiting for answers. And if little lies are allowed to carry on for 30 and 40 years, we come to the point now where a Jeremy Corbell can release a Bob Lazar story, and it starts all over again, because everyone allowed, if it is a lie, for just to go on, and no one ever, and don't get me wrong, because a lot of people have debunked a lot of things, but nobody has ever debunked, is there an S4? Like everyone says there is, but is there actually things in a mountain?
I go back to the burden of proof on nobody proved it. So to say, well, nobody's disproved it, we should continue to deal with it. This is off the top of my head, so I don't remember the guy's name, but I believe that there was a hiker that kind of snuck in and hiked across the desert to where S4 was. I believe George Knapp has talked about this, but I'll have to look it up. If you want to send me an email and remind me, I'll look it up for you and send it to you. But there that there was nothing found out there in the desert where allegedly S4 was. And so again, I wasn't prepared for the question, so I don't have all the exact details for you. But I recall hearing that there have been people, or at least one, I should say, that went out there, hiked across, and didn't find anything. But again, I just want to punch the point about the burden of proof. And although you ask great questions like why hasn't anybody just definitively put that to bed, and we had the conversation about that, I'll leave this because I'm going to have to sign off here. But I'll leave this conversation with a hypothetical, and if you have a comment, by all means. But my hypothetical question would be, why wouldn't Bob Lazar take the evidence that he had in the form of, allegedly, element 115 that he snuck out of the S4 facility or whatever, wherever he snuck it from, and had kept it? And according to a lecture by George Knapp, who was very, very close, or is very close to Bob Lazar, said that George Knapp knew where Bob Lazar buried it in the desert, should he ever need to go dig it up. And he made a joke, and I'm paraphrasing, but he made a joke in this lecture that he said, maybe one day, if Bob passes away, I'll go out there and dig it up. That video, why wouldn't you just do that, change the world, right? Because we know that he can talk about this story and nobody's coming after him. If you change the world and give this alien alleged fuel, which later we discovered element 115, but only survives a fraction of a second, regardless, if you have that element 115 that you have connected to this whole story, and you could change the planet, why wouldn't you do it? And that is my biggest question, among 1,000 other ones of his story not lining up. But at the end of the day, let's forget about all that.
That's my biggest.
Well, yeah, and that's
when it comes to that.
Right. So the burden of proof with the S4 claim and the alien saucers and the element 115 fuel and this, that, and the other, whatever, show us that. You show us that you change the planet. I truly believe the government's not going to come after you in that regard. That's not a national security thing in my book. That would be a scientific discovery. So if Bob disappeared the next day, you would have an international public outcry. So that's where I would hypothetically ask that question. Instead of those having to disprove a claim that Bob didn't prove in the first place, I would flip it and say, you know what, Bob, if you really had that piece buried in the desert somewhere that you were just saving for a rainy day, go pick it up and change the world. And I think George Knapp was asked about it later, after that video is circulated for a couple years now. And he said, I guess Bob moved it or something. So it kind of removed George Knapp from the situation, as far as I know. Yeah. But again, if he's got it, show it.
It sounds very Hollywood.
Yeah. I think there's a movie coming out.
Here's my last comment.
Sure.
And the only thing I'll say is that I truly believe that if it could even be, let's just say, someone crazy like Marco Rubio, or someone that isn't liked, or not so much him, the other guy, the Ted Cruz or whatever. If one of them sat there and said, look, we want to put this to rest. We're going to go out to S4. We're going to do this. We're going to put it all out to rest. If that was publicized, almost like how Geraldo went into the vault.
Yeah.
just hear me out. If that was publicized and it was actually, a good production, good people involved in it, James Fox, whoever, someone putting it together, if at the end of it, nothing was found and this is what we believe, nothing was found, I truly believe UFOs are now back to biblical terms where it's just spirits. There's nothing. It's just spirits. And we've eliminated all that. We've eliminated that Bob Lazar, this kind of stuff. We can get rid of that. We can't get rid of all of it, but I'll tell you, I truly believe 30 to 40% of the following people in the United States of America that follow this issue, if Bob Lazar was put to bed, it'd be over. They'd be thinking about it as spirits. We'd all be wondering about it. We'd all be fascinated about it, but we wouldn't be caught up in the minutia of this belief that the United States has been covering this up from Roswell, from all this stuff, because Bob Lazar brings credence to all those old stories until it's eliminated.
Hopefully that'll happen.
Eliminated.
Yeah, hopefully.
What's that?
No, I mean, hopefully one day we'll get an answer. But going back to the root of your original question on this, the government, if they came out with anything, pro or against, people aren't going to believe it anyway. I think I've come to that conclusion.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, hey,
I'm only looking for my belief.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate your phone call and the conversation. So thank you so much, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next live show as well.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thank you. All right, sorry to kind of cut this off at the end here. Daryl, again, with the support. Thank you. Regarding Lazar, did you by chance FOIA what the FBI was after when they raided his business? Yes, I have those files. It was definitely not what it was said to be based on the police records. Those came from a journalist by the name of Tim McMillan. And so he has... all right, I'll grab this last one. This is going to be the last call. So lost my train of thought. So the police records, it was definitely not in the same guise that was depicted in the documentary. And so it was, in my opinion, not accurately portrayed. Going back to one of the original callers about accurately portraying things in documentaries, I did not feel, based on the documents that came out from the police department and what I've learned through the FBI files related to what they claimed that it was. On top of that, there's more files. So I'm still, kind of reminds me, I'll write it down to go back to the United Nuclear requests that I have. I believe one of them is still open with the FBI, chasing down some of those records. In regards to Lazar personally, the Privacy Acts prohibit me from getting his FBI file, so I can't go after him. When I went after United Nuclear, his business, I found a lot more stuff, more about the charges that he had prior to that raid. Again, the misrepresentation evidence kind of came from more of the police records that came from a state sunshine law that was published by Tim McMillan. So let me go ahead. This is going to be the last call. I'm so sorry that this is the last call, but let me pull you on real quick. Sorry to make it quick. Who's this?
Hey, John. My name's Todd. How are you?
Hey, Todd. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, man. I hope you had a good holidays.
Thank you. You as well.
This is the end of your show, so thank you. I'll make it quick.
No problem.
I'm second-year cosmology student in Dunlop in Canada here, and I got a chance to sit down for a 5-minute Q&A with one of the head of NORAD, and I kind of brought up the whole UAP topic, and I just thought it'd be interesting and to get your feedback. I kind of asked him about the whole UAP thing and what he thought about it, and he didn't necessarily laugh at it, but he just said, he goes, "Yeah, it's interesting." He goes, "Everyone screams about more data." He goes, "If you guys had any idea of how much data we collect, it's impossible to go through, that our sensors are detected to detect certain things and everything else is in there, but there's no way of getting the data without spending like millions of dollars paying people to go through data," which he goes is absolutely impossible. And the part I wanted to bring up to you, because he made a really good point, said, what do you think about the U.S. and the government and the whole, I think it's called the Gillibrand, if I'm pronouncing it right, laws? He goes, you know what? He goes, I'm afraid, he goes, first of all, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but a good way of getting things bottlenecked up would be to make one office accountable for it. He goes, number one, you'll never get a leak again like you did before. They can really control the narrative. He goes, that's what I would do. If I want to gain control of a certain topic, I would make an office, and I would make everything come through one, reported to one system. He goes, and frankly, when it comes to the UAP, he goes, which I'm a strong believer in, because any kind of vehicle in the air that's over our airspace we don't know about, it's a problem. He goes, when it comes to that, he goes, why would we want to release any data on that? He goes, there's no benefit to releasing any data, whether it's our own tech or whether it's an adversarial tech, where we can say we can tell them where they poked a hole in our defense. Anyways, I just want to make that comment and hear your thoughts, man.
No, that's great. It's a great story. Thanks for sharing it. There's a lot of national security aspects to the UFO phenomena, plain and simple, whether it be ultimately defined as a extraterrestrial presence or a foreign adversary or a friend of ours that is flying over our airspace, whatever it may be. There's national security aspects to it, and it can also be all of the above. The vulnerabilities that could be exposed, they are butting that up against telling the public the reality of the phenomena, and that's also part of what we have to understand about the secrecy, is that if we start exposing those weaknesses, and let's just assume for a moment it really was some extraterrestrial presence in this encounter in 2004 or 2010 or 2020 or whatever, that exposes the weaknesses that others can essentially exploit themselves and take advantage of. So it makes sense. I mean, the open sharing of data and information in the interest of transparency will be trumped by national security. I don't necessarily fully support that, but I believe that that's where we're going to be headed with this. And I think that, and you had it pronounced correctly, the Gillibrand Amendment that was in the NDAA that was just signed by the president in the last few days. The problem with that amendment, although it sounds great, a lot of people that are really excited about it haven't realized that that will not erase national security. That doesn't just mean like they're going to declassify everything and give it to the public and we have a report. What I am excited about is that we will get reports, or some level of reports. They will likely echo the June report of this year, the UAP report, that was interesting, but I had to read it a couple times to realize it was interesting. But what did we learn from it? And we haven't really learned anything new from it, other than the number of cases that they had and maybe a couple other nuggets here and there. We didn't really see anything. We didn't see any videos. We didn't see any photos. We didn't learn anything beyond that. That's what I fear with this. Congress will get their classified briefings and they will know. Are they going to tell us? Well, I fall back on the fact that numerous congressmen and senators here in America have been briefed in a classified setting on UAPs. Not a single one came out and revealed anything that was, talked about in those classified meetings, and rightfully so. They're classified for a reason. But I think a lot of people are forgetting that they think, oh, well, now Rubio's talking about this, Gillibrand is talking about this, we are going to get answers. Quite on the contrary, I'm excited, but only to a point. I think they're forgetting this will not wipe away national security, and national security trumps transparency every single time, plain and simple. So so I agree with the scientists you talked to.
He was very clear on stating those facts. That he goes, no politicians, all these politicians you've heard on TMZ, and he goes asking for transparency. They want answers. He goes, they're not going to tell you. They're not. They first of all, they can in a lot of cases, but they're not going to tell you. And he really does feel this is the Gillibrands, the government's way of really putting a cap on this, because he goes for a while there with the media. He goes, just my opinion, it was kind of getting out of control, and they were getting tired of answering these questions. So here you go. Here's where everything reports to. He goes, and he doesn't think you're going to see a leak anymore. But he he could only say so much. He was a really good dude. He only got 5 minutes of your time. But he's fully convinced, and he kind of smiled when he was saying it, that the Gillibrand effort is just to kind of say, here you go, we're doing something about it.
Yeah.
There is a national security problem, but it's basically to bottleneck everything. And he says, basically, if there is something, anything of any level of importance, you're not going to find out regardless. You weren't before, and you're not going to now.
Yeah, honestly, smart person, whomever you talk to, I would agree with 95%. The only thing I'll respectfully disagree with is the leaks. For whatever reason, they were leaking like a sieve from the UAP task force, which was also consolidated into one office. So even though they're calling it an office now, and that was a task force, it was still located within ONI and very tightly kept. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of people involved. So with that being said, that's why I've always questioned, you have a very short number of people that could have been responsible for those leaks, and it's like they didn't care. It was almost like it was intentional. So that's where I would just respectfully disagree, that I think that we will potentially see more leaks in the future. But I'll play devil's advocate with myself and say, what happened after those Corbell leaks prior to the UAP report? They just stopped. So maybe Jeremy Corbell, I don't know for sure, I'm guessing, has something else up his sleeve, and he's going to come out with something, or the leaks stopped, and I don't know. So I wrestle with it, but if I were to bet money, I believe the leaks aren't over.
John, can I ask one quick one?
Sure.
I'm so sorry. The 140 cases with the UAP task force, how did they pick which? Because we heard there were like incidents every day for 2 years. We know that the Nimitz main, it doesn't sound like that was one of the cases. Was there criteria to pick of cases? Like, how do they only do 144 cases? Do we know anything about why those particular cases and why not others?
So it goes in, the quick answer is not really. We don't know the prerequisite for it to meet the requirements to get sent to the task force and for them to analyze it for the report. What's not answered is there was 144 reports that were analyzed for the UAP report itself. What I've never been able to establish is that all of what they collected on UAPs, or the ones that they felt were the most important? So maybe they collected 1,000 reports, but only 144 were worthy of investigation. I don't know. We don't know how far back they went. I believe in an interview, Luis Elizondo said that he was told they went back to 2004 and up, right? So obviously the Nimitz encounter and beyond, which would make sense. That, you're going to have people you can talk to more easily than if you go back to 1965. But the set of prerequisites for it to meet, certain criteria, no, we don't know that yet. The details of the investigations themselves, they've very much kept a tight lip on, and probably will for quite some time. I'm not sure how much you listened in, but very early on in the show, the whole kind of point of the video was a FOIA appeal win that I just had today. So that I'm hoping those types of small victories will hopefully lead us to seeing those reports and what we may deduce from that as some of the prerequisites for them to say, oh, okay, this is UAP and we need to look at this because of XYZ. So it may involve a little bit of thinking by us once we start to see that material, because I don't know if they will ever release the guidelines on how they investigate the UFOs or what that criteria might be. I hope that addressed your question adequately.
It does. It just does. Because there's so many questions like who knows, like, were they told to not investigate certain cases? Were they giving SAP access? Like, there's just so many questions. Who knows? Yeah, no, there's a lot of questions indeed. So I'll definitely stay on it though. Yeah, absolutely. And if I come up with anything, I believe I've talked to you a couple times on this channel also privately. So I may be wrong. Yeah. Okay. I recognize your voice. So it's good to talk to you again. And hopefully I'll definitely catch you on the next live show. Happy New Year, John.
Thank you, to you as well. And I'm sorry if anybody is on the phone. I am going to have to cut this. This has been, as it always is, an extraordinary learning experience for me. I love the live phone calls. I love the presentation portion. So this has been a lot of fun for me. What is a huge help right now is if you can hit that thumbs up button if you're watching on YouTube. Why? That really helps my channel. It helps the videos spread a little bit and really does help spread the word. And if you can forward these videos, if you find them worthy of doing so to your respective channels, listeners, social media, stuff like that, that is the biggest help. Also in the description, if you do feel so inclined, I do have a Patreon. 100% of everything goes right back in to not only this channel, but supporting the Black Vault as well. If you're not aware, there are more than 3 million pages that you can download that are for free. There is no registration required, even a free account, nothing. You can just go on there, start clicking, start downloading. All of that stuff gets a little bit pricey to keep online though. So that's why those Patreons are set up. If you can't do that, don't worry about it. Spreading the word is the biggest help. And again, the thumbs up button. Thank you again so much. My closing thought is if you like these live shows, make sure if you are not watching on YouTube, go to www.theblackvault.com/live. That will forward you to where I do these live shows. And if you are listening to the podcast, instead of a thumbs up, those reviews obviously help. I aim for 5 stars. I won't tell you what to do, but that is my aim and goal. A review, an honest one at that, is a big help as well. Thank you guys. And this is John Greenwald Jr. signing off, and we'll see you next time.